Imagine sitting in a sixth-grade classroom, trembling hands clutching a piece of paper. On it, 5 words that felt like destiny. I want to be on television. Before you can even breathe, your teacher snatches it away. The sound of paper tearing cuts through the room. Laughter erupts. She calls your parents, complaining about your ridiculous dreams. That moment could have destroyed everything. But for Steve Harvey, it became the fire that forged a legend. Before the stages, before the empire, before the world knew his name, Steve Harvey was just a kid from Welch, West Virginia. Born January 17, 1957, to Jesse Harvey, a coal miner whose lungs carried the black dust of endless shifts, and Eloise Vera, a Sunday school teacher who made miracles with pennies. 5 kids shared everything. Thin meals, patched clothes, winters that bit through walls. When the family moved to Cleveland, settling on East 112th Street, life stayed brutal. That same street would later be renamed Steve Harvey Way. But back then, it was just cracked sidewalks and struggle. Poverty wasn't his only battle. Steve stuttered. Every word became a war in his mouth. Kids mocked him. Teachers looked past him. And in 1960s, America, being a young black boy, meant the world had already decided your ceiling. Every dream felt twice as fragile, twice as impossible. That day in 6th grade, when his teacher tore his paper and ridiculed him, something inside Steve both shattered and hardened. His mother's face carried embarrassment. But his father, Jesse, looked into his son's eyes with conviction. Write it down again. Put it on your wall. Read it every morning and every night. Make it your promise. Those words became gospel. Every single day, Steve read that promise like a prayer. When he graduated Glenville High School in 1974, that vow still burned. And when the impossible became real, Steve never forgot. Every Christmas, while she was alive, he sent his former teacher a brand new television. No card, no explanation. Just a quiet reminder that the boy she dismissed was now inside every living room in America. The gap between that torn paper and a comedy stage felt impossibly wide. Steve spent his 20s drowning in jobs that crushed his spirit. He delivered mail until his fingers went numb. He scrubbed carpets on his knees. He sold insurance to people who slammed doors in his face. He worked as a mechanic, an auto worker, a boxer taking punches for pocket change. Every shift ended the same. Empty pockets, emptier soul. Then came October 8, 1985. At the Hilarities Comedy Club in Cleveland, a friend dared him to take the stage at open mic night. With nothing left to lose, Steve grabbed that microphone. The first joke landed, then another. Suddenly the room exploded with laughter. That sound wrapped around him like salvation. When he walked out into the cold Cleveland night, he was crying. Not from sadness, but from finally understanding who he was meant to be. The next morning, he quit his job. But the universe doesn't hand out easy victories. In the late 1980s, Steve Harvey became homeless. For 3 brutal years, he lived in the back seat of his 1976 Ford Tempo. That car became his entire universe. A cooler in the trunk served as his refrigerator. He showered at gas stations and swimming pools. The hunger was relentless. 75% of his sporadic paychecks went to his estranged wife and kids. He survived on less than $50 a week, stretching cheap sandwiches across days. Nights were the worst. He'd sit in that driver's seat, fog gathering on cracked windows, terrified someone might discover his secret shame. He later admitted the depression was suffocating. You can handle it for a week, maybe a month. But 3 years tests everything inside you. Yet even in that darkness, he clung to his father's command. Every morning in that car, every night before sleep, he whispered his dream out loud. The breaking point almost came. One night, ready to surrender, he reached for the phone to call his father and admit defeat. Before dialing, he pressed play on his answering machine. 2 messages blinked. A club in Jacksonville offering money. Another gig the next night. Suddenly, he had just enough for a cheap flight to New York, where Showtime at the Apollo wanted him. If he'd missed those messages, everything might have ended right there. Survival came from unexpected angels. Rich and Becky Liss saw something in him when the world saw nothing. They gave him a carpet-cleaning contract and a line of credit for travel. Their faith restored his dignity when shame nearly buried him. Years later, crying on national television, Steve called them live just to say thank you. Those years in that Ford didn't crush him. They carved him. Every setback became fuel. Every humiliation transformed into hunger. In 1990, Steve Harvey competed in the Johnny Walker National Comedy Search as a finalist. Shortly after, Showtime at the Apollo opened its doors. For 7 years, he carried that legendary Harlem stage on his shoulders, transforming it into his battlefield where scars became strength. The climb was merciless. 18-hour days, sleepless flights, a voice frayed from constant use. He admitted later, "The laugh you hear is the wound I turned inside out." In 1994, he starred in Me and the Boys. 2 years later, The Steve Harvey Show became a cultural monument, running until 2002. To millions, he wasn't just a comedian. He was proof that laughter could rise from despair. Then came the crowning moment. From 1997 to 2000, Steve joined Cedric the Entertainer, D.L. Hewley, and Bernie Mac for the Kings of Comedy Tour. Arenas shook with roaring crowds. When Spike Lee captured it in the original Kings of Comedy film in 2000, Harvey's name was permanently etched into American culture. But impact stretched beyond stages. In 2009, he poured hard-earned wisdom into Act Like a Lady, Think Like a Man. The book became a New York Times bestseller, later adapted into a box office hit. More books followed: Straight Talk, No Chaser in 2010, Act Like a Success in 2014, Jump in 2016. Honors arrived like a flood. Batty Humanitarian of the Year, Hollywood Walk of Fame star, multiple Emmys, and NAACP Image Awards. In 2015, East 112th Street officially became Steve Harvey Way. But even legends face humiliation. December 2015. The Miss Universe pageant. Millions watching as Steve read the winner's name. The wrong name. The theater froze. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Cameras captured every flicker of panic on his face. "I just want to apologize," he said, voice trembling, dignity stripped before the planet. It became one of the most painful public apologies in television history, yet also one of the bravest acts of accountability. The aftermath was brutal. Memes exploded. Comics turned his pain into material. But where others might have hidden, Steve refused to bow. He returned to host Miss Universe again the very next year, scarred but unbroken. In 2019, NBC canceled his talk show Steve without warning. On the final taping, he didn't collapse into bitterness. With steady voice masking the storm within, he said, "This is just a new chapter. I'm 62 years old, and this book still has pages left." But the deepest wounds came from places cameras never captured. Success demands sacrifice. For Steve Harvey, the first price was family. In 1981, at just 24, he married Marcia. Together they had 3 children, twins Carly and Brandy, and son Broderick Jr. The 1980s were merciless. Steve scraped through small-town gigs, sometimes sleeping in his car. Nights under comedy lights meant mornings missed at home. Marcia bore motherhood's weight in silence, watching her husband disappear night after night. Steve later confessed, "I lost my family chasing the dream." By the time divorce finalized in 1994, he was shattered. The man who made strangers roar couldn't stop tears in his own house. In 1996, Steve married Mary Shackelford, believing this time things would be different. In 1997, their son Wynton was born. Harvey adored him, calling him "my compass." For someone who once lived in a car, holding his infant son felt like redemption. But ambition cuts both ways. As Harvey's career accelerated, the marriage buckled under familiar absences. By 2005, everything collapsed under public scrutiny. Mary went public with accusations that slashed his reputation. Though courts later dismissed many claims, public opinion was merciless. Winton was only 8 when his parents' love disintegrated. After divorce, the boy lived with his mother, leaving Steve with only fragments of time. "I could survive tabloids," Harvey confessed, "but seeing that pain in my boy's eyes, that broke me." The divorce stripped more than family. In 2005, Harvey walked to a bank ATM. The screen flickered back, $1,700. For someone whose face filled billboards, that figure cut deeper than poverty ever had. Then came the devastating blow. For 7 years, his taxes had gone unfiled. The IRS came calling. Principal, interest, penalties multiplied into a mountain threatening to crush him. Harvey did what survivors do. He fought. Before sunrise, he was already in studios. His morning radio show became his lifeline. He worked until his body staggered. Radio mornings, meetings by day, stages at night. In 2010, destiny arrived. Harvey became host of Family Feud. Within 3 years, ratings exploded to historic highs. What began as a lifeline became resurrection. Still, the climb was brutal. For years, every paycheck went straight to the IRS. "I thought I was finished," he said, "but God wasn't done with me." Then came Marjorie Bridges. Years earlier in Memphis, he'd pointed to her from a stage and declared, "I don't know who you are, but I'm going to marry you." Life pulled them apart. In 2005, bruised by scandal, destiny brought them together again. In 2007, at 50 years old, he married her. Marjorie did what fame and money never could. She steadied him. Harvey admits 85% of everything I have came after marrying her. Not wealth, peace. Together they built a blended family of 7. Steve's 3 children, Marjorie's 3, and Winton under one roof. Harvey gave her children his last name. Slowly, through consistency and love, they gave him their trust. In 2015, Marjorie's son Jason turned to Steve on live television and said, "You gave me your last name." "There's no one better than you, Dad." Harvey broke, sobbing openly. For someone who once whispered, "I lost my first family chasing the dream," those words were grace, absolution, healing made visible. Today, approaching 70, Steve Harvey stands as architect of a global empire. Since 2010, he's been the face of Family Feud. Every morning, the Steve Harvey Morning Show reaches millions nationwide. Through Steve Harvey Global, he's expanded Family Feud internationally. He co-founded Levate You, a wellness supplement line. In 2020, he purchased Tyler Perry's former estate in Atlanta, 17 acres valued around $15 million. For someone who once lived in a Ford, it represents permanence after decades of uncertainty. Yet even surrounded by opulence, Harvey lives with discipline born from fear. He's openly discussed high blood pressure, sleep apnea, and early Parkinson's symptoms. He dropped 30 pounds after 50, built rigorous training routines, maintains clean eating habits. Behind tailored suits lie quiet rituals, blood pressure cuffs, measured routines. "I still think about $1,700, he confesses. Not about money, about memory. The constant reminder of how fragile security remains. But this chapter isn't measured in ratings or wealth. It's measured in healing. With Marjorie, Harvey transformed scars into strength. Today, his net worth sits in 9 figures. But Harvey insists real treasure is humbler. Dinners where every child sits at the same table. Mornings when grandchildren run through hallways more valuable than any trophy. His life speaks beyond comedy now. It's testimony carved from trial and grace. That resilience outlasts ridicule. That faith carries through fire. And that love heals even the deepest scars. The boy who once doubted his voice now uses it not only to make the world laugh, but to remind it to hope. As Harvey says, applause fades, trophies gather dust. But family, discipline, and gratitude, these are legacies that endure. So here's the real question. Has there been a moment when you felt reborn? When grace or love gave you a second chance? If Steve Harvey's story touched something deep inside you, hit that like button as tribute to the man who gave joy to the world while carrying unimaginable pain. Subscribe and smash that notification bell because stories like this remind us no scar is final. Drop your thoughts below. Your words might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today.